Hi, everybody. Let's talk about how to write a research paper. Writing a research paper is fun, it's exciting, it's a way of satisfying your curiosity about something you've always wanted to know about. It's a way of empowering yourself. It's a way of making yourself a better educated, more powerful, more inspirational, more interesting human being. After you've written a good research paper, you can stand up in a crowd and you can impress people with your knowledge, and people will say, wow, that person really knows what's up. I want to listen to that person. So let's get started. You're going to be looking at, as you listen to this presentation, you're going to be looking at the How to Write a Research Paper handout. You'll find it on the Blackboard page for our class. You should print out a copy and you should have it handy while you're listening to this slideshow. And you can learn how to be like this man right here who can stand in front of a crowd and get everybody excited with his ideas. And I know this handout is kind of long, but you should not be intimidated. I wrote this handout for you. Yes, exactly for you. I've been teaching for a long time, and every semester as I read my students' papers, I see, boy, this student could have done this differently or could have done that differently. And that's what this handout is. It's based on my students, on their papers. So it's written for you. It is long, but you're going to take it one step at a time, one day at a time, and at the end, you're going to write an A paper. And you're going to be like this guy here, happy, content, learning about something he always wanted to know about. Or this lady here who's so committed to her writing that nothing in the world could bother her. So let's have a look at the first page. It tells you that if you follow this handout, you're going to write an A paper and you're going to get an A for your paper. And if you don't follow the handout, you're going to fail. So, pay attention to the handout. It tells you, this handout that I hope you have printed and sitting next to you while you're listening to this presentation. The handout tells you that you're going to do the steps one at a time and you're going to do them in order. And it's really important to do them in order. Don't start looking at page 5. Stick to page 1. Once you finish page 1, then you can move on to page 2, but don't jump ahead, because each one of these steps builds on the previous step. So what's your first step? Your first step in writing a great research paper that you're going to enjoy writing is to pick a topic that interests you. If you want to be a police officer after you graduate, pick a topic related to crime. If you want to be an elementary school teacher, pick a topic relating to children. If you really love your pet, you can pick a topic relating to animals. Once you've picked your topic, relate it to the main idea of the class. And that first page goes into detail about how you do that. After you've picked a topic that interests you, your next step is to listen. Your next step is not to write. It's not to research. Your next step is to listen. You have to hear the conversation before you can contribute to the conversation. So you need to know what other people are saying about your topic before you can say something that's worth hearing. So go ahead and listen to what other people are saying about your topic, and that first page tells you some ways to listen to what other people are saying. As you listen, one of 3 things is going to happen. You're going to find out that something is not being said, and it's something that you will think should be said, but something's not being said. You're going to find out that something causes you to feel emotions. Like you're going to get a feeling in your stomach, or your palms are going to sweat, and you're going to think, wow, something's really going on here. And the next thing that you're going to think is you're really curious, like you want to know more. That the thing that you think that should be said, but that's not being said, or the thing that causes you to feel emotions, or the thing that makes you curious, that's where you get your thesis statement. and your paper will flow from your thesis statement. And you don't need a thesis statement to start writing, but once you start writing, once you start thinking about your topic, your thesis statement will come. And the next thing on page 2 tells you don't change your topic. Once you've picked a topic, don't change your topic. And it tells you why I ask you not to change your topic. I ask you to think about your topic in anthropological terms. In a math class, you solve problems through arithmetic, addition, subtraction, etc. In a phys ed class, you solve problems by running and jumping. In an anthropology class, you solve problems by studying people. So think about your question, think about your thesis in terms of people. And you're going to be researching your topic by researching either people or people's culture. So your next step, only after you've done these preceding steps, is to develop a thesis. It's one point that you're going to prove in your research paper. A good thesis is a sentence. And a lot of students didn't have very good grammar teachers, and they don't actually know what a sentence is. And if you don't know what a sentence is, you shouldn't feel self-conscious. For some reason, grammar education is not what it used to be, and so a lot of people don't know what a sentence is, so don't panic. So there's a real quick review there of what a sentence is. A sentence is a noun and a verb. And a noun is a person, place, or thing. And a verb is an action or a state of being. And you've got a picture there in the lower left-hand corner of a sentence. You've got Joe punching Bob. That's the noun, Joe. Punch is the verb. And you can also have another noun at the end of the sentence, and that noun is Bob. So that's your sentence right there. You got a noun and a verb. So you're going to have some samples there showing you good thesis statements that are actually sentences. And each one of those sentences contains an action verb. And what I want you to do right now is I want you to pause this slideshow. And I want you to pick up your piece of paper there that has this handout on it. And I want you to underline the action verbs. Even if you already think you know what an action verb is, I want you to do that just as a review. I want you to start thinking about action verbs. And then later you can go to the end of the handout, and I have the answers at the end. And you can see if you were able to pick out the action verbs in those thesis statements. Some students kind of have an idea of what a sentence is, but they don't really know how to put a sentence together to make it a thesis statement. So I have an example there in the middle of the page from a previous semester. Students whose parents are serving overseas with the military are bad students. That's not a really good thesis statement because this student is trying to make the word students her noun, but that's not really the noun she wants. That's not really the noun that's doing the action. And so I rewrote this thesis statement for her as overseas military deployment damages student performance. And I could give you a long explanation, grammatical explanation as to why the second one is a better thesis, but rather than giving you a long grammatical explanation, what I'd like you to do once again is pause this slideshow, pause this presentation, and have a look at these thesis statements and see if you can rewrite them following the example I gave you to make them better thesis statements. And the answers are at the end of the slideshow. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the thesis statement that needs improvement and rewrite it according to the model, and then check on the last page to see if you rewrote it the right way. Okay, what do you do next? The next thing you need to do is you need to find a thesis that someone might disagree with you about. If you're going to say something that everybody knows is true, That's not really, why would you bother researching something if everybody already knows it's true? Like the sky is blue. That's not a good thesis statement because everybody knows that the sky is blue. So why do you have to research that? You want to pick something that somebody might disagree with you about. So you need a thesis statement that is open to debate. What's the next quality of a good thesis statement? A good thesis statement is analytical. It is not evaluative. So those are two words I want you to think about: analytical versus evaluative. What does analytical mean? Analytical means either something is true or false. For example, 2 plus 2 equals 4. It's true. 2 plus 2 equals 5. It's false. What do I mean by evaluative? Evaluative is the difference between good and bad. Girls should not wear short skirts. Hey, that's your opinion. So you want a thesis statement that is analytical rather than evaluative. And once again, I'm going to ask you to pause this slideshow, and I'm going to ask you to look at the samples there. And I'm going to ask if you can pick out the thesis statements that are analytical and the thesis statements that are evaluative. And I want your thesis statement to be analytical. What's the next thing you have to do? You want your thesis statement to be specific. You've only got 4 pages in this paper. You can't really write about world history or world peace or, how to become president. You want something short, something simple. A previous semester, a student had a really good thesis statement that Haitian zombies display the same qualities as a depressed person. And she just wrote a couple pages on the qualities of Haitian zombies, and she wrote a couple pages on the qualities of depressed people, and she compared the two. 4 pages, done. The next thing that you want your thesis to be is well supported with peer review scholarship. So if you want to write about sports, if you want to write about mainstreaming, if you want to write about Halloween, if you want to write about magic tricks, you should read previous scholarship that talks about your topic. That goes back to listening. It's like you know what people have had to say about your topic. Think of the peer-reviewed scholarship as the roots of a tree. Your paper is the tree, and the peer-reviewed scholarship are the roots of the tree. You have to cite in your 4-page paper at least 2 peer-reviewed articles. And the next couple pages of this handout tell you how to find peer-reviewed articles and how to recognize peer-reviewed articles. So have a look at the bottom half of that page that you see on the left-hand side of the screen. It tells you how to find peer-reviewed articles, how to use search terms, subject terms, and then you're going to have a look at how to recognize a peer-reviewed article once you've found one. And this page here, the upper part of this page, tells you that you should use the subject terms that the search engine you are using uses. In other words, if you want to write an article or you want to write your research paper about African Americans, some databases will use the search term African American. Other databases will use the search term Black. If you want to write about women, some databases will use the word women, other databases will use the word female. If you want to write about magic, magic is a tough one because people use the word magic all the time in reference to many different things. They might use the word magic In reference to romance, falling in love is magic, but you're not interested in falling in love. You want to write a paper about actually using spells. So you're going to combine the word magic with, for example, homeopathic or contagious or Fraser or anything else that you can combine with the word magic so that the database knows how to give you the kind of articles that you need. And so these pages tell you how to conduct a search. Then the page tells you, the lower half of the page on the left-hand side of the screen tells you how to recognize a peer-reviewed article. And you're going to need 2 peer-reviewed articles for your paper. So I strongly recommend that you read that so that you know when you see these articles whether they're peer-reviewed or not. And this page tells you that some modern peer-reviewed articles have a very distinctive look. You know, you can tell from 5 feet away that it's a peer-reviewed article based on how it looks. But these are modern articles, and some of the older articles don't have this particular look. Like this peer-reviewed article on the left-hand side of your screen, I can tell just by looking at it. I don't even need to read any of the words. Even if this were in a foreign language, I would know that's a peer-reviewed article by the way it's laid out on the page. But here's another peer-reviewed article by Alan Dundes that doesn't have that look. So there are other methods for recognizing a peer-reviewed article, and what you need to do is read the handout. It tells you how to recognize a peer-reviewed article. What about Wikipedia? Can you use Wikipedia? The lower half of the page on the left-hand side of your screen tells you how to use Wikipedia. I don't want you citing Wikipedia. I want you to cite what Wikipedia cites. So after you've found a topic, developed a thesis statement, found peer-reviewed articles, you're going to create a research design, and you must do original research. Now, once again, you're in anthropology class, so your original research is going to involve you researching people or cultural creations made by people. And this page in the lower part of the page gives you a bunch of examples of previous semester students and how they researched people. And you need to get your research design approved by me. And you should do that at least a month in advance. At the end of your paper, after you've written the whole paper and you've got your bibliographic entries, you're going to include an appendix. What's an appendix? An appendix is that paperwork or whatever it is, could be an audio recording, could be photographs, that documents your research. If you did a survey, you hand in all the survey pages. If you talk to people online, you can print out the emails. As this student did, if you hand wrote your notes while you were conducting your research, you put that in something called an appendix, and you hand that in with the final paper. And it can look messy, it can be handwritten. The appendix does not have to be formatted in any particular way. And you can see here this beautiful actress has got handwritten notes. That can be your appendix, handwritten notes. In the upper right-hand corner, we have another appendix from another paper. This person did surveys asking people, the student was trying to prove that participation in athletic activity improves academic performance. And so this student handed out surveys asking, are you athletic and what's your grade point average? And after people filled out these surveys, the student put all the surveys together and handed that in with the final paper. And on the top of the page there, you'll see another appendix from a previous student who interviewed a woman who worked with dogs. She worked with dogs in the public library, and children came and read to the dogs. And this is a way of making children feel comfortable with reading out loud because dogs are so accepting and encouraging. And so this student, excuse me, interviewed the woman who worked with the dogs, and you can see his appendix in the top of that page. It's his notes on his interview with the woman who worked with dogs. Okay, so now you've got your topic, you've developed a thesis statement, you've gotten 2 peer-reviewed articles, you've done your research, which you have taken notes on or recorded or photographed. In some way you've documented your research, and you're ready to start writing your paper. And on the bottom of that page there, you see a picture of a volcano, you see a picture of a thunderstorm, you see a picture of an opera singer, you see a picture of a giant wave, you see a picture of a geyser. What does all that mean? It means that when you sit down to write your paper, nothing should hold you back. First of all, you should be alone. And there are plenty of rooms in the library where you can be all by yourself. You should not have music playing. You should not have any kind of distraction. Your phone should be shut off. It should just be you and the computer screen, or you and a piece of paper, and you should just let it all out. You've been working on this paper for like a month. You've got all these ideas in your head, and you should just sit down and let it all flow. And in the lower right-hand corner, we have a scene from a movie where a woman just pours everything she's got into something that she's writing. She loses any kind of sense of time or place. She gets ink all over her fingers. She's on the floor. She's scribbling, she's scribbling, she's scribbling. That's how you write. You don't think about grammar at this point. You don't think about spelling. You don't think about rules. You write something good. You write something bad. You're not judging it. You're just getting it all down on a piece of paper. Writing, 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 writing. And then after you've gotten down like 6 pages minimum of just stuff that you've just written without thinking, you put it down and you leave. You go do something else. You leave the house. You don't look at it. You don't think about it. You don't talk about it. You go for a walk. You go to work. That's what makes for a good writer. You put it aside, and only then, after a 24-hour break, do you come back, and then you start editing. And then you're a completely different person. Before I said you should be like an opera singer, you should be like a volcano, you should be like a geyser, you should be like a storm. You should just let it all out. After that 24-hour break, you come back, you're a scientist. You're organizing the paper. You're putting things that are like each other together into one paragraph. You put the triangles with the triangles, the squares with the squares, and the circles with the circles. What that means is you put the peer-reviewed research in one paragraph, you put the description of your research in another paragraph, you're putting things together and you clean things up. Then you start worrying about grammar and spelling. Your entire paper should consist of facts proving your thesis true. That's it. I don't want to hear your opinion. I don't care about your opinion. I want to see facts. If you believe that voodoo is a satisfying religious experience for its practitioners, voodoo satisfies the spiritual needs of practitioners. There's a thesis right there. You went out, you met people who practice voodoo, you interviewed them. I want to see facts. I want to see you convince me that voodoo satisfies its practitioners. If you believe that teaching students to read by using phonics, that the phonics method improves reading skills in young students, I want to see facts proving that the phonics method is going to improve the reading skills in young students. So don't go off on tangents. Don't start writing about something else. You state your thesis, and then you state a fact proving your thesis true. And then the final pages of the handout offer you some suggestions on how to polish your paper. Suggestion number 13 is write a compelling first sentence. The first sentence of your paper is the first thing that I'm going to read. If your first sentence is very clear, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to think that the rest of your paper is clear. If the first sentence of your paper is interesting or intriguing, I'm going to be happy because I'm going to think that the rest of your paper is going to be intriguing. So it gives you some suggestions on how to write a good first sentence. Then there's the first substantive paragraph of your paper. That is, you can start, your first couple sentences can be anything you want, but at some point, perhaps the first paragraph, perhaps the second paragraph, you are going to provide a reader with a map of your paper. That is, everything that's in your paper in summary form is going to be in that first paragraph. In this paper, I will demonstrate that voodoo satisfies its practitioners' spiritual needs. I will prove this point using previously published peer-reviewed research. I will also prove this point using my own research that was conducted in Paterson, New Jersey among practitioners of voodoo. So your first substantive paragraph tells the reader everything that's going to happen in your paper. It's a very short summary of the rest of your paper. And I give some examples of some good substantive first paragraphs. Basically, it's the rule of 3. The first thing you're going to do is tell readers what you're going to say. Then you say what you're going to say. Then you tell readers what you've just said. So after that first paragraph, you're going to tell me what you found out from the peer-reviewed articles. That's called a review of previous research. And that should really only be like your first page. And it tells you there when and how to use citations. So every time you quote somebody else, you need that parenthetical in-text citation. Then, after you tell me what the previous research has said, then you tell me about your research, and you should go into detail describing your research. In Paterson, New Jersey, in April of 2019, I spent, or if you don't want to use the word I to make it sound more objective, refer to yourself as this researcher. In April of 2019, this researcher went to Paterson, New Jersey and visited 10 schools, and this researcher took notes during the classes in reading on how phonics was used in schools. So in other words, you're going to give the who, what, when, where, why, how of your research. When was your research conducted? How was your research conducted? Who did you talk to? How did you take notes, etc. At the end of your paper, you're going to have a conclusion. Remember the rule of 3. First, tell them what you're going to say it, then tell them what you've just said. At the end of your paper, you'll have a conclusion. You will briefly review what you just said. It's okay if you don't prove your thesis true. You may have wanted to prove that corporal punishment, that is hitting kids in school, is dangerous for students. And you maybe found a school that practiced corporal punishment, and maybe you found out that the students were okay with the corporal punishment, that they just took it for granted. So then you say at the end of your paper, it was the goal of this researcher to prove that corporal punishment damages children, but this paper did not prove that. And the way to prove it would be, and then you offer some suggestions for future research. And one suggestion might be, we need a larger study sample. Like I only questioned 10 students who had been hit by their teachers, and we should question at least 1,000 students who have been hit by their teachers. I only questioned male students, and I believe we should question male and female students. So that page gives you some examples of suggestions for further research. Okay, so now you've got the whole paper written. You've got your thesis, you've got your first substantive paragraph, you've done your review of previous research, you've introduced your own research, you've got a conclusion. What do you do now? You read the paper again. You delete anytime you repeated yourself. You delete every time you become evaluative. If you start saying you should do this, or you must do this, or this must happen, get rid of that. Your paper is going to be analytical. You delete rhetorical questions. Why do people read fairy tales? Why do students go to school? Why do men abuse their wives? Why do women take drugs? Just get rid of that. You don't need rhetorical questions. Don't overstate your case. When you start using words like always, never, all the time, throughout time, everywhere, just delete that. You're trying to make one small point. I'm recommending that you not use passive voice. And I know many students don't really know what passive voice is, so I have some examples there. And what I want you to do is pause this slideshow, and I want you to read about passive voice and active voice and see if you can change the passive voice sentences into active voice. And I bet you can, because even if you don't know what passive voice is, I bet you know how to do it. And I'm going to ask you not to try to talk fancy. Keep your sentences short, sweet, noun, verb, noun. Be specific as possible. At the end of the paper, I want you to have a bibliography formatted exactly the way these two bibliographic entries are formatted, except I'm seeing on the screen that there's a mistake there. The subsequent lines after the first line should be indented. So your bibliography should not be flush with the left margin. The first line should be flush with the left margin, and the subsequent line should be indented. Read your paper out loud before you hand it in, and then celebrate, because if you followed this handout, you will get an A. And I wish you every luck in the world, and I hope you have fun with this, because writing a research paper empowers you. It makes you a stronger person. It makes you a more powerful person, and that's a good thing.